Live from Milan Fintech Summit 2023 here in Milan at Allianz MiCo. In this moment, we are in the Unicorn Tales column. The column in which we want to talk about the great companies in the fintech industry, so the unicorn on fintech. In this moment, we are together with Max von Bismarck, who is Chief Business Officer at Raisin. Thank you for being with us, Max.
Thank you very much for having me, Matteo. It's great to be at the Milan Fintech Summit. Italy is an important market for us. It's one of our 5 largest markets, and we have 23 banking partners here in Italy, so we're excited to be here.
So we are happy for this, but we want to start from one point. This year you became a unicorn. So what does it mean for Raisin, and what is changing in the investment market in terms also of opportunities of growth for you as a unicorn in fintech industry?
Sure. So maybe firstly, we generally do not comment on our valuation, and I also think that in the industry, maybe there's been too much focus on point-in-time valuations, like if someone is a unicorn or is not a unicorn, and maybe sometimes not enough focus on the KPIs or building a great business. And I think our view is that building a great business takes time. It's tough. We just celebrated 10 years anniversary with Raisin, and we're pretty excited to how far we've come. So to give you a few numbers, we've now crossed 50 billion in AUM. We added 20 billion in the last 9 months. So it's 70% year-on-year growth. The business is profitable. We operate across Europe, the US, and the UK, and we're seeing also the international markets grow quite quickly. And if we look at impact, we now paid out 1 billion euros in interest to our customers, and it's 570 million of that above market rate. So in a time where a lot of those customers were not getting an attractive interest rate at the customers. And we're funding or supporting banks, more than 270 banks today in their deposit funding. So we've come a long way from where we started as a company, but we still feel in terms of the opportunity that we can address, we're just at the beginning.
I think that it's your point of view. It's really important because sometimes, or maybe for the general public, the general audience, to become a unicorn is the final result. But maybe sometimes it's just the beginning for a business. So it's interesting because your business is consolidating itself during these 10 years. But according to you, what are the next challenges and opportunities that can come from the investment markets at European level and also maybe in Italy, as you said before?
Yeah, I think maybe if we look at markets, one of the key things that we're seeing is that the interest rates will stay higher for longer. So we believe higher interest rates are here to stay for a while. We might be at almost the end of the hiking cycle, but we don't see aggressive rate cuts anytime soon. And if we look at that, still the majority of European banks are not passing on those higher interest rates to the consumers. So the pass-through rate in Europe at the moment is around 17%. And so we feel there's a big opportunity for fintechs and a company such as ours to provide savers with attractive access to attracting savings products and benefit from these higher rates that will stay here for longer. I think if you maybe look at the other side of the equation, the banking side, banks generally rely about 60% of their funding on deposit funding and 40% of that on households. And I think deposit funding is also becoming even more important for banks in terms of their funding for a number of reasons. I think one, Currently, it's cheaper than wholesale funding. Um, Also, there's a lot of TLTRO that needs to be repaid in the coming years, and also for funding diversification. So, to give you a concrete example from the US, if many of us remember the incident of Silicon Valley Bank going down, and one of the issues was that their funding as a bank was not very diversified. So, on the deposit side, they were relying on a kind of smaller number of customers, and over 90% of those deposits were uninsured. And so it's very important for banks to get access and diversify the funding to deposit insured retail funding. So we think in this environment, there's a lot of exciting opportunities for us, but also for other fintechs.
And according to you, looking to the future, what could be the most important assets to consider, or maybe advices to give to these companies? Also looking at the lesson learned, as you said, from the Silicon Valley Bank crack.
Yeah, maybe if I look ahead, three things that I would consider. Firstly, I think if you look at the underlying trends that drive fintech, they still all hold true, even though the capital markets environment for tech is maybe more challenging. But the underlying trends, namely that things are moving to digital offerings and customers are moving digital, that is all continuing. And I think also, if you look at the opportunities to create productivity or efficiency gains in the back end of financial services, there's huge potential. I think that's one area where I think AI will play an important role. The second thing maybe to consider if we look at the next 12 months for fintech is that I think the funding environment will remain difficult. So I think you will continue to see a focus on quality versus quantity of investors, and things like, interesting business model, cash flows, potential exit multiples will play a role. And I think that's also generally healthy for the fintech industry. But at the same time, great businesses always get funded and will also get funded in the next 12 months. And maybe the last observation, if I look ahead in terms of fintech in the next 12 months, is that we will see more consolidation, I think. You need, as a fintech, you will need, fintech companies will need scale. And there's a lot of fintech companies that do not have scale. So I think what you're going to see is a pickup in M&A activity, both fintech to fintech deals, but also bank to fintech deals.
You talked about healthy and skills, but according to you, there is the skill for investing in the future that can help companies, also fintechs, to uh, better understand how to invest and where to invest.
My personal view is the key for if you're building a fintech company is focus, is to really understand where do you have a comparative advantage, and then focus on that space and invest in that space. So don't spread yourself too thin. Don't look at expanding into 20 markets. Look at where do you really have a competitive advantage.
Precise focus.
Focus on that, and and stay hungry.
Stay hungry. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Matteo.
Okay.